Samwell was fading in and out of consciousness. He wasn't sure if he was hallucinating, as he lacked the energy to even open his eyes. The only sense that assured him that this was reality was the severe sting of hunger. His mouth hung open and his tongue felt frozen to the side of his mouth. The subtle sound of horse hooves trotting along in the snow, as well as inaudible distant voices, filled his ears. Sam tried to open his eyes. It was difficult, considering his eyelids were covered in frost. Samwell made inaudible moans as the horse he was draped over suddenly came to a halt. A strong set of hands pulled him for the horse, though not strong enough to hold his full weight. His body weight then forced him to the ground with a dull thud. Sam's energy was coming back to him as he choked on his own frozen tongue. A black-cladded man offered him a skin from inside his cloak. The water was cold, but it wasn't frozen, for which Sam was grateful. The feeling in his mouth had slowly started to return, as was his vision.
Easy now, Samwell Tarly. You're fortunate we found you when we did.
Samwell recognized the voice belonging to Ser Jorah Mormont. Sam knew he was taken beyond the wall by Queen Daenerys some 15 years ago. Samwell tried to speak. His tongue was free, but still had little feeling, making it difficult to speak. Sam took in his surroundings. They looked to have arrived at a makeshift camp. Samwell recognized the other man at the camp as First Ranger Benjen Stark. Ser Jorah helped Sam over to the campfire that Benjen was tending to. The First Ranger offered him a bowl, and Samwell did not argue. Nor did he ask what it contained. It looked like food, which made it close enough. Samwell forewent the spoon and drank slowly and constantly, directly from the bowl. The warmth tingled his tongue. Moments later it started to burn. Sam felt as if he could now speak, but his aching stomach demanded he use his mouth for matters other than speaking. Once the broth had warmed his mouth and hands, he then picked the remnants in the bowl and devoured them. Samwell cared little for the type of meat it was, nor would he ask. It was perhaps the best meal Sam had ever tasted. Once the bowl emptied, Sam finally exhaled, and he noted the steam escaping from his mouth. Samwell again tried his voice. His language was finally discernible, and Ser Jorah smiled widely at him.
Glad I finally got the chance to return the favor.
Sam knew Ser Jorah was referring to the time he surgically removed his grayscale, likely saving his life. Samwell now knew just how close he may have come to his own demise.
My men.
Samwell's tongue had finally decided to cooperate, and the smile then slid from Ser Jorah's face.
We found your camp. Afterwards, we assumed any survivors would head south. Benjen fell back to set up a camp as I searched for a day and a night. You were the only man we found alive, or even half alive.
Ser Jorah concluded, and Sam felt as if his heart fell from his chest. Thousands of men his men he led to a slaughter. His brother by law, lords of the great houses of the Reach, all dead on his commands. Samwell was in shock as Benjen and Ser Jorah shared looks of concern.
Samwell, what happened? What happened at your camp?
Benjen Stark asked with care. Ser Jorah's attention then turned from Benjen and back to Samwell as he handed him another bowl of soup.
It was a slaughter, out of all of my men. Are you telling me I was the only one selected to survive?
It appears so.
Ser Jorah admitted with a long face, and Samwell silently wept.
What do you mean, selected to live?
Benjen asked with what seemed to be of great interest. A chill was felt, shivering up Samwell's spine until it made his head twitch.
There was a man, a slender man from Essos. He calls himself a warlock.
Samwell stuttered, and Ser Jorah then leaned forward.
You mean you saw him?
Ser Jorah exclaimed, and Samwell thought Ser Jorah seemed to be in more of a panic than he was. Ser Jorah hung his head in dismay. This then distracted Samwell to the point of inferring.
What do you know of him?
Samwell asked, and Ser Jorah was too quick to answer.
He is the ruler of Karth in the Far East. He was spurned by Queen Daenerys and is determined to see her downfall.
Ser Jorah admitted. But Sam delayed his retort as Ser Jorah seemed to desire to continue. After a lengthy pause, Samwell decided to respond.
That doesn't make sense. I marched north to hold the Dragon Queen accountable for her crimes. Why would he see my army as a foe rather than an ally?
Samwell inquired honestly, and Ser Jorah then gulped deeply.
Perhaps he has intentions beyond Queen Daenerys now, considering he was the one who murdered the Ranger, your son. Little Sam, I believe his name was.
Ser Jorah pondered and seemed to notice Samwell's nervous gestures.
I returned your son's body to the wall after I witnessed his death. Did Sir John not tell you of what I had witnessed?
Ser Jorah inquired, and Sam could contain his emotion no longer.
I failed. I failed my family, my army, my kingdom.
Lord Samwell cried, and Ser Jorah placed a gloved hand on his shoulder as Sam wept.
The Warlock is searching for something, a weapon, and he knows its location. I revealed it to him.
Sam cried, and Benjen then spoke with little patience.
Pull yourself together, Tarly. Were you not a sworn brother of my watch? Cease your folly and make yourself useful.
Demanded First Ranger Stark, and this made Samwell sit up a little straighter and focus on the issues at hand.
The Warlock visited me as a young man, at my father's command. His magic I cannot explain. He holds a stone, a gem. It is capable of preserving someone's memories. He can then review them at his leisure, and I believe he is searching for a war horn, the Horn of Winter.
Samwell admitted, and Benjen now seemed to be more interested than Ser Jorah.
The horn is real. Mance Rayder dug up half of the Frostfangs in search of it. Some say this is why the Night King marched on the Fist, as he may have been in search of the horn as well.
Benjen beckoned, and Samwell tried to keep his face as blank as possible.
You've seen it. You know where it is.
Benjen was astonished. His breathing hurried. It was difficult not to notice as the frequency of fog leaving his mouth quickened.
Yes, I found it at the Fist, though I had no idea of what I had found.
Samwell exclaimed as Benjen then pushed him further.
No, but he can search my memories to his heart's desire. He may know something I can't recall.
Samwell inferred, as Benjen rose to his feet.
Why would you offer him these memories? Why would you give him that kind of power?
Benjen demanded, though Sam had assumed Benjen already knew why.
Your life? He offered you your life in return, you fucking coward.
Samwell now rose to his feet, staring deep into Benjen's eyes.
You speak of cowardice, First Ranger. I seem to remember you representing the Night King during the battle for Winterfell.
Samwell spat, and Benjen's face seemed to soften.
Forgive me, brother. My condition often leaves compassion in its wake.
Benjen finished, and Ser Jorah then interjected.
You're sure you are not aware of where it is?
Ser Jorah asked, and Samwell thought on it hard.
I gave the satchel containing the horn and the dragon glass to Sir John. He then took it beyond the wall to Hardhome. Only the Lord Commander knows where it is now.
Samwell exclaimed, and Benjen immediately started packing his horse. Ser Jorah left to discuss his intentions was Samwell's assumption. Benjen seemed quite distraught, and Jorah hung his head as he walked back to the campfire.
We're departing immediately. There is no way of knowing which castle Sir John is located.
Ser Jorah admitted as Benjen then returned to the campfire, leading his packed horse by their reins.
You lot head to Eastwatch. The pass leading to the haunted forest is blocked. I'll have to scale a mount. Not to worry, I've made that climb a dozen times before. Once I reach Castle Black, if Sir John is anywhere else, I'll have to send a raven. You do the same if you reach Eastwatch first.
First Ranger Stark finished, and Samwell then nodded his chubby face.
Our trek to Eastwatch will be less difficult, though it will take longer, perhaps days.
Ser Jorah admitted, and Benjen's horse squealed as it reared.
Mind your thoughts, Lord Tarly. The watch once again requires your duty.
First Ranger Stark exclaimed as his horse set into a gallop. Ser Jorah then turned to Lord Samwell.
Eat your fill. We were preparing rations for at least a dozen men. We are not likely to make camp again before reaching Eastwatch.
Ser Jorah finished as he left the fire to break camp. Sam only could make one other horse. Their trek to the shoreline would be cold and lengthy. Samwell felt better prepared with a full stomach. as he had still refused to ask what he was eating. Sam felt like a burden until he remembered what Ser Jorah opened the conversation with, gratitude for his actions at the Citadel. The days of old when Samwell had acted rationally, some might even say bravely. The cabin swayed on the longship avalanche. It bothered Arya very little, although Nymeria, her direwolf, had not yet established her sea legs. The wolf had not eaten in weeks. Likely her appetite would return once they had reached White Harbor, Arya thought. Sir Davos had requested entry to her cabin, likely to give her the morning briefing, she thought.
Your Grace, the helm reports our heading is now due north. We should arrive at White Harbor before the sun sets.
Very well, Sir Davos, but I am not yet your queen.
Lady Arya had corrected more times than she could count.
You are the mother of the princess, and the only known love interest of his grace.
Sir Davos replied and patiently waited her answer. After a few moments of silence, Sir Davos saw fit to continue.
Lady Arya, would you listen to the ramblings of an old man?
Sir Davos asked, and Arya nodded her head in silence.
There are not many men who have known more kings than I, although I cannot imagine any other king who loves the mother of his daughter more than his crown.
He finished with a wide smile. Arya thought of the kind-hearted elderly man. He reminded her of what her own father would have grown into if he had been gifted the blessings of age. Lady Arya then quickly changed the subject.
Lady Mira will be my escort to Winterfell. Please prepare the Avalanche for departure after a fortnight's time. Lord Varys will be free to operate as he sees fit. Once we return, we shall continue on to Eastwatch for Lady Tarly's departure.
As you will, Your Grace.
Sir Davos acknowledged her commands with a slight grin. The port bells then rang announcing Lady Arya's arrival. She had hoped to slip out of White Harbor with only the slightest bit of fanfare. The Avalanche was tied to the deep-water docks under the merman statues. Lord Manderley was at the end of the brow, and Lady Arya knew she would have to observe the greetings of the North.
Lady Stark, I would like to offer my congratulations on your engagement.
You are very kind, Lord Manderley. Is there any word from the capital or from Winterfell?
Would our future queen prefer the brief version?
We are in a hurry, Lord Manderley. Please forgive our straightforwardness.
Lady Mira explained as she stepped off the brow. Arya was grateful Mira had cut through the niceties that Arya felt would reflect poorly on the king, if these words happened to fall from her own mouth.
The Princess Brianna has departed King's Landing aboard the Greyjoy flagship Silence and is due in Storm's End any day now. Lord Eddard has assumed the duties of Lord of Winterfell, and checkpoints have been established on all major roads leaving the north.
Lord Manderley finished as Lord Varys had requested his attention. Again, Arya was grateful for the interruption as Sir Davos announced from the deck of the Avalanche.
We will eagerly await your return, Lady Arya, and will be ready to set sail with the tide.
Sir Davos announced for all to hear. 3 steeds were supplied to the ladies, 2 for riding and a spare for supplies. The stable boy was giddy at meeting their future queen, as well as one of the heroes from the Battle for the Dawn. They were advised on the best route, due west through the Barrowlands, then onto the King's Road all the way to Winterfell.
What are the conditions of the King's Road?
Lack of rain has kept the road dry. Lack of war has kept the road clear. You will not find a faster route to Winterfell.
Lord Manderley finished with a pompous sense. Arya again showed signs of gratitude as their horses fell into a trot. Once clear of the docks and the market, the ladies set these northern steeds into full gallops. Nymeria ran at a distance in an attempt to keep the horses calm. Hard riding and nearly a week's worth of gallops had Arya's rear aching. She was half wishing the Avalanche could sail upriver to Castle Serwyn and be dropped off right on Winterfell's doorstep. Arya rarely saw Nymeria sleep. She ran all day and stood watch over the camp all night. A small inn had a vacancy for a night. That was the last time she saw the direwolf sleep well. Their horses were swapped at the same inn and allowed them to push even harder than before. Arya was just grateful to be making good time, all the while keeping an eye out for her wolf lagging behind. Nymeria then suddenly sprinted up past them to Lady Arya's surprise. Arya set her horse into a gallop to get a direct view of her overly anxious direwolf. Nymeria was nose to nose with another snarling wolf, just before another emerged from the tree line. Lady Arya wasn't sure if these were Nymeria's pups now present in Winterfell. Arya then called to her wolf, who reluctantly looked over her shoulder, her mane still stiff and upright in an attempt to intimidate the smaller pack of wolves.
In the name of Lord Eddard of House Stark, cast your weapons upon the ground and identify yourselves, weary travellers,
ordered a confident voice from Lady Arya's blind side.
We are weary indeed, my lord. Lady Arya of House Stark and Lady Mira of House Reed, and our weapons are our own.
A long pause followed as the Winterfell captain of the guard revealed himself.
I assume Lord Eddard will want to see his aunt reach Winterfell unaccosted.
Lady Mira finished as the sentry came into clearer view.
I am John Tarley, captain of Lord Eddard's guard.
Rear your wolves, Lord Tarley. May we assume your escort back to Winterfell.
Lady Mira continued as Arya remained silent.
It's a day's ride north. Lord Eddard is expecting you. We, however, were not expecting a direwolf.
John Tarley claimed as a handful of Stark soldiers fell in behind their captain. Nymeria then circled and placed herself between Mira and Arya. Their horses seemed more comfortable with Nymeria now that the northern pack had revealed themselves. Normally these skittish steeds would have protested. Now they saw Nymeria as an ally, Lady Arya had assumed.
Would the ladies prefer to make camp for the night?
We would not, Lord Tarley. We will push through until we reach Winterfell's gates.
Lady Arya had revealed her intentions as well as her exhaustion.
As you command, Lady Stark.
Little John Tarley replied as they took up a lead position on the King's Road. Their horses were exceptionally calm around Nymeria. Arya assumed they were comfortable around the wolves who had kept to the tree line, as to not offend Nymeria. Arya rode up next to John Tarley with numerous questions on her mind. Their horses grunted while they slowed to a trot.
What have you found in regards to Bran's capture?
Nothing more than has been reported. Bran missing, no sign of a struggle, no sentries reporting anything odd, and Lord Glover flayed in his own quarters.
Little John reported nothing new to Lady Arya.
Lord Glover flayed living. Someone would have heard something. That's not a short process.
Lady Arya replied, and Little John was quick to respond.
His throat was slit, he bled out, only his head was flayed.
Little John corrected, and Arya then felt her heart stop.
That wasn't in Lord Eddard's letter. That is a very relevant piece of information.
Arya revealed as she quickened her pace. She felt her heart race as she pondered the possibilities of what this had meant. They rode through the night, mostly in silence, save the horse hooves that pounded the King's Road. They passed through Winterstown as the rising sun peaked over the horizon. Arya doubted the castle would be awake yet, but Lord Eddard had prepared for his aunt's arrival. The shouts and fanfare did not make Lady Arya feel any more comfortable. As noted by Arya's travelling companion, Lady Mira Reed.
More than you were expecting.
Lady Mira asked while they trotted their horses through the streets. Arya agreed silently as she reminisced about the first time she laid eyes on a royal caravan entering Winterfell when she was a young girl. Is this how Robert and Cersei felt as they rode into Winterfell, feigning appreciation for the common folk, all while focusing on their main objective? Robert was trying to recruit her father for duty in King's Landing, the first of many terrible decisions that nearly destroyed their family. Mira shouted to break Arya's daydream right before they arrived in the Winterfell courtyard. John Tarley had already dismounted his horse and fell into line beside Lord Eddard and Maester Ashmore.
Welcome, Aunt Arya. Would you be insulted if the North were to bow to their future queen?
Lord Eddard asked. It was nicely done, Arya thought. His court remained upright, allowing her to reject royal honors without as much as asking.
Nephew, we appreciate the warm welcome home, but I dare say I am not yet your queen, despite how fast news of my engagement has traveled.
Lady Arya smiled at the notion of becoming oversaturated with attention. Lord Eddard dismissed the welcoming brigade quickly. He had probably noted Lady Arya's apprehension regarding the fanfare.
Rest, business, investigation. What are the ladies' priorities?
Lord Eddard asked, and Arya was quick to answer as they paced through the courtyard.
Bran's bedchamber remains undisturbed?
Arya asked, and Lord Eddard agreed before continuing.
We wanted to retain Lord Glover's body for your review, but the rot had set in, as well as the impatience of Deepwood Motte.
His body was returned then?
Lady Arya asked with slight disappointment.
It was, milady. Maester Ashmore took detailed notes for your review.
Please bring them to my bedchamber. I'd like to question Maester Ashmore himself afterwards.
I'll see to it myself.
Lord Eddard responded to his aunt. Lady Mira then inserted herself into the conversation as she trailed behind the pair of Starks.
We'd like to see the crypts first. Is access still restricted?
Lady Mira asked, and Arya looked to Eddard for his reply.
It was. We thoroughly searched it after Lord Bran's disappearance, and guards have been posted ever since. It was likely the assailant's point of access.
Lord Eddard informed the pair of ladies.
We were thinking the same. I'd like to start there.
Lady Arya proclaimed, and Lord Eddard silently agreed. He led them through the main hall, and Arya noticed very little had changed. The high stone walls were fresh mortared since the wildfire explosion Arya initiated here during the Battle of Winterfell. A creaking door was opened, leading the Starks down into the crypts. Arya removed a wall torch as Mira did so as well. Down the spiraling stone steps, they finally reached the dusty floor. Lady Reed and Nymeria continued one way as the direwolf's nose sniffed deeply at the stone floor. Arya casually walked towards her father's grave and took in the moment. How she had missed him.
At some point, I'd like to hear about him. Father rarely speaks about his past. He named me for Lord Eddard, but all I know is soldiers' gossip. I figure I could learn more from his own daughter, if you were willing, milady.
Lord Eddard asked nervously, and Arya turned to see his apprehension regarding their arrival. Now that privacy had offered itself to the pair of them.
Winterfell is in good hands, nephew. You are living up to your namesake. I surely hope I'm not the first to reveal this to you. I'd be honored to discuss my father with you.
Finished Arya as she could hear Eddard's lungs breathe a sigh of relief. Lady Arya took a closer look at her father's statue. A long sword lay across his lap. It was a tradition for the old kings of winter to be presented a sword. Its purpose in death were widely discussed and interpreted, but still the tradition remained.
I don't recognize this sword. Did it belong to my father?
Lady Arya asked in curiosity.
Nobody knows. The black blade was discovered deep within the crypt. Years ago, with instructions it was to remain at Lord Eddard's side until the long winter. Maester Ashmore himself has researched what this could mean. But alas, nothing for sure.
Lord Eddard revealed to a curious Arya as Lady Mira appeared from the dark side of the crypt.
There is little to be gained down here. The caverns are too vast. Too many have passed through. We would do better to see Bran's bedchamber.
Lady Mira insisted, and Arya reluctantly agreed. They passed through the Godswood as Nymeria ran and chased the smaller direwolves around the weirwood. Nymeria finally figured out these wolves were her own pups. Arya had now been home for hours, and this was the first time she felt her scarred face break a smile. Lord Eddard excused himself to see to the feast they were preparing at dusk. Eddard had promised a small affair. No more than 24 were selected to attend in the main hall, to Arya's relief. They came upon the door leading to Bran's bedchamber. His feather bed was slightly disturbed, without a blood trickle on the floor. One could believe Bran went willingly according to the evidence left behind. Lady Mira let slip a slight whimper as she took in his carriage chair sitting in the corner of the room, as well as the handlebars near his window, crafted so he could lift himself up to the window, likely longing for the freedom the world below would mockingly show him, Lady Arya thought. Arya then approached the bedside table, half expecting to find something left behind. A small, leather-bound, dusty book sat at his bedside, and Arya thought this as odd. She hadn't seen Bran read in years. Why would he need to, when he could just revisit man's events rather than read about them? She picked up the small book out of curiosity when the book revealed what it was hiding. A small coin was left beneath it. Arya discarded the book quickly and then examined the coin closely. It was familiar to her, in her youth. She was once presented one similar to it. It was now when she realized Lord Glover wasn't flayed. His face was taken. Arya was sure of it. She was initially reluctant to say the words aloud, but she couldn't help herself.
Vala Morgulis.
She whispered aloud, just loud enough for Lady Mira to hear.
What was that? What is that you found?
Lady Mira asked with a worrisome tone.
Just the scars of a girl's past.
Lady Arya admitted in a somber tone, and Lady Mira stared into Arya's scarred face, likely seeing the glass forming over her eyes. Arya could tell Mira was gazing into the seriousness of her face.
Eddard told me John escorted Munda back to the last hearth. He is on his way back to Eastwatch. We'll feast and rest tonight, then ride back to White Harbor in the morning.
Lady Arya explained to a confused Mira.
Why shouldn't we just ride directly to Eastwatch if getting to John is so important?
Lady Mira asked, but Arya knew she did not have the complete picture.
We will need our ship. After we dock and resupply at Eastwatch, we will cross the narrow sea to get to Bran.
Lady Arya exclaimed, but Lady Mira's confusion had just seemed to deepen.
Arya, where are we sailing to?
Lady Mira demanded with little patience behind her words, and Lady Arya responded with a stoic glare.
To the free city of Bravos and the House of Black and White.
Night had now enveloped the narrow sea. The Greyjoy flagship Silence cut through the dark glass like water as its sails flowed in the gentle breeze. Princess Brianna had emerged from her cabin along with a singular personal guard. She climbed the steep staircase leading to the helmsman. Most of the crew had packed into the cargo hold and slept deeply in their hammocks affixed to the Silence's many submasts. First mate Marlon Blacktide was manning the helm when he had noticed the Baratheon princess. A stiff head nod was all her presence had warranted from the gruff sailor. Still, she conducted herself with the grace of her position. She helped herself to the charts. Surprisingly, the quartermaster was not representing their track on those same charts. Brianna looked to the sky as it was a partially clear night. She then located the brightest star highest in the sky. Princess Brianna casually opened a hinged wooden box mounted to the quartermaster's table. She removed the bronze instrument and lifted it high into the night sky. She then attempted to relocate that same bright star. The rough math she calculated in her head as she turned to face the charts again. She lifted the chart's overlay. Their position did not make sense to her. She again raised the instrument to the sky. This time Marlon Blacktide felt the need to interject himself.
It's called a sextant, Princess. It ensures proper navigation on a clear night.
First mate Marlon advised, though Princess Brianna did not immediately respond.
It can also keep the time and allow us to calculate our vessel's speed.
Brianna murmured as she again referred to the quartermaster's charts.
You are familiar with navigation methods?
Marlon asked, but it rang as more of a statement inside the princess's ears.
More than familiar, Lord Blacktide. Enough to know how off course we are. Check for yourself.
Princess Brianna offered as she handed the sextant to the first mate.
Could your guard offer me a hand?
Marlon asked, and Princess Brianna agreed.
Micah, we could use your assistance.
The Baratheon soldier was one of two on board. Neither an hour had passed without at least one soldier being in the presence of the princess.
As you command, Princess.
First mate Blacktide then raised the sextant to establish their position. Princess Brianna kept quiet as to not affect his mental calculations. He referred to the charts, and after a few brief seconds, he then responded to her.
I'm sorry to inform you, Princess. You are incorrect. Our heading holds us on a southwesterly course entering Shipbreaker Bay.
Marlon contradicted her confidently.
Sir, I have navigated my mother's ship across the narrow sea and to the edge of the Sunset Sea. My math is correct. We've passed Tarth to the east rather than to the west. We are well south of Shipbreaker Bay and are currently rounding Cape Wrath.
Princess Brianna replied, now becoming more frustrated. First Mate Marlon grunted again as he stared down at the charts. Brianna's eyes pleaded with him to see reason. He had to, she thought to herself. Brianna was startled as Marlon Blacktide drew his dirk and thrust it downward into the collar of her guard who was manning the helm. She gasped, but refused to scream. Her mother always taught her, silent as an alley cat. His body fell to the ground, splashing in a pool of blood, still visible by the few lanterns on deck. Marlon then grasped her long dark hair and walked briskly down the narrow staircase, dragging her behind him. Her eyes watered, but he had no idea who he was dealing with, or what he had done. Brianna had to find out how many of the crew were involved. Was he acting alone, or was this a mutiny against Lord Valen as well? Once they reached the deck, Brianna was not hurrying to First Mate Marlon's liking. Without warning, nor as much of a word, he straightened her posture by her hair and squarely punched her in her silent mouth. Her ears rang as tears streamed down her face, and the taste of blood filled her mouth. Both Ironborn and royalty continuously stepped on the hem of her dress, subsequently causing her to fall to her knees every other step. First Mate Marlon again raised her to her feet. She slightly winced and turned her face, and then her shoulders towards the portside railings. Blood trickled from her face as she was bent over the railing. Through her watery eyes she could see the red droplets fall into the sea. A more simple-minded lady would pray to the storm gods, but Brianna was determined to be her own savior. Marlon's dirk cut at her ripped dress as she could feel the fabric fall around her ankles. A single hand held the back of her neck as she bent over the banister. Brianna feigned fear and forced herself to cry and whimper. A swift kick to the inside of her ankle had helped the tears flow. Another swift kick to her opposite ankle had revealed Marlon Blacktide's intentions. The gentle breeze could be felt on her bare backside as she now knew most of her dress was removed. She craned her neck to see if anyone else was topside. Alas, they were alone.
You should have stayed below decks, Princess. This may have been easier on you.
Marlon replied with venom in his voice. This seemed more personal rather than opportunistic, Brianna thought. Marlon released her neck, answering her prayers. He grasped her hair and pulled her head back. He then whispered into her ear, though the venom remained.
Nearly 30 years ago, my father defended Pike from the onslaught of the tyrannical Baratheon regime. He died honorably. Beware the vengeful princess, but fear the patient man.
He pressed his nose to her cheek and took a deep breath, taking in her scent. Brianna forced a whimper, waiting for him to place his head behind her own. He released her hair and began fumbling with his own belt buckle. Princess Brianna had to choose her timing correctly. The time was now. The princess slammed the back of her head into the old man's nose. He yelped, and Brianna felt the dripping of warm blood onto her bare backside. Within the same heartbeat, she raised her arms and interlocked her fingers behind his neck. Brianna utilized her own body weight to take him to the ground. As anticipated, his pain then turned to rage. Brianna was on her back and he was on his face. Brianna's hand slid from his neck to his eye sockets. She dug her thumb deep through his eyelid to the point where she felt a pop and a howl of pain. Brianna expected him to retreat, but his body weight was removed from her much quicker than she could have anticipated. Lord Valen Greyjoy stood over him as he writhed about the deck in pain. Valen picked up his first mate by his scruff and led him below decks, not paying the princess the slightest bit of attention. Brianna approached her soldier's corpse and removed Marlon's dirk from his neck. She was still nearly naked, but now armed. Brianna slowly headed below decks to hear the screams of the first mate as the pair of Ironborn came into view. The dull flickering of the brig's candlelight served as the princess's guide. Marlon's left eye dangled from its socket, and Captain Valen was enraged. Brianna stepped silently, as to not distract the Lord of the Tides. Marlon sat with his back to the curved hull inside the barred cage that served as the Silence's brig. The light level was low as Brianna crept silently along the bulkhead. She then tripped over a mass on the floor. It was a body, wearing heavy armor. The princess then noticed the crowned stag of House Baratheon on his breastplate. It was her last guard on board. Brianna now realized she was on her own. Her eyes raised to see Vaelan's swift movement inside the brig. Marlon howled and Brianna then stood up straight. Vaelan had stabbed through the palm of his first mate, binding him to the bulkhead. Still, Brianna heard no words from the Iron Islanders. Marlon's free hand then moved to pull the dagger from his opposite palm. Captain Vaelan then swung a single-bladed axe just above where his hand was stabbed and immobilized. Another howl and begging ensued as his fingertips rolled down the curvature of the hull. Marlon left the dagger, pinning his outstretched hand to the hull. That was when Brianna finally heard Captain Greyjoy speak.
"Now the other, you sick, vengeful fuck,"
demanded Captain Vaelan as Marlon begged for mercy.
"Either offer me your hand, or it will be taken."
Offered Captain Vaelan, and Marlon reluctantly agreed. He stretched it outward opposite his other outstretched arm. Captain Vaelan then removed an iron spike from his belt and hammered the other palm into the bulkhead with the blunt edge of his battle axe. Marlon was silenced when he saw Brianna, half naked, dagger in hand as she entered the brig. Brianna could note the fear flickering in his one remaining eye. Brianna slowly approached him, refusing to even acknowledge Captain Vaelan's presence.
"Easy, easy, princess,"
exclaimed Vaelan as he removed another iron spike from his belt as he placed himself between Marlon and the half-naked princess. Captain Vaelan removed his long black cloak to offer it to her as she stared into the eye of her transgressor. Brianna refused his cloak as she addressed the sea captain directly.
Let him see what he so desperately wanted to have,"
stoically clamored Brianna, and Vaelan seemed impressed by her confidence. She accepted the iron spike and battle axe from her captain. She held the axe high at the handle to properly control its head. She swung and drove the spike once, twice as it passed easily through his flesh. She lowered her grip and swung again and again, showing little care in landing the blows upon the head of the spike. Her emotion overcame her as she dropped the axe, now knowing the events of the night could possibly be coming to an end. She hunched over as Vaelan covered her nakedness with the previously offered cloak.
What of him now?"
Princess Brianna demanded of her sea captain, and Lord Vaelan responded quickly.
"He could bleed out, die of thirst, or starvation. Perhaps if the princess is feeling merciful, you may end his life at any time you see fit. He will surely beg for it, eventually."
Lord Vaelan offered to her, and this seemed to pacify her for a moment.
"My men! He killed my men!"
Brianna wailed as she buried her face in Vaelan's chest, and he then returned her embrace.
"You are mistaken, my princess."
Captain Vaelan corrected her as he took control of the battle axe, the only remaining weapon inside the brig.
"He only dispatched one of your guard."
Captain Vaelan admitted with a wide, devilish grin. Brianna took 2 steps back deeper into the cell and pulled Vaelan's cloak tight around her shoulders. Her face remained blank. Captain Vaelan casually shut and barred the brig door, entrapping Brianna inside the cell alongside her half-blind, crucified attacker. Princess Brianna approached the door to attempt to appeal to the sea captain.
"You forget yourself, princess. My desire is to hold your house accountable for the crimes of the past that can be accomplished, your virtue notwithstanding, princess."
Vaelan informed her as he whisked himself from the hold in the belly of the flagship Silence. Brianna quickly accepted the fact of where she stood, or sat as she gazed opposite her attacker. The ship listed heavy to port to both of their surprise. She assumed this to be extremely painful as his full body weight was held in place from the spikes driven through his palms. Again, the Silence listed violently to starboard. A storm must have crept upon them while the helm was unoccupied. Baratheon blood being spilled into the sea would likely have angered the storm gods, if anyone was silly enough to believe in such things. Marlon's pleading brought Brianna back from her daydream. Winds and waves pounded the silence as Marlon raised his voice for her to hear.
Do both of us a favor, girl. Take your vengeance already. Bury that axe in my forehead. Lack of company would do you better than mine own.
Marlon pleaded, and Brianna sighed in a mocking tone as she ran a finger down the ebony handle of Lord Valen's battle-axe.
Beware the vengeful Lord Blacktide, but fear this patient woman.
Brianna smiled as she finished throwing the dead man's words back at him. The carriage wheels strained and squeaked as they were pushed along the western road. Lady Lannister's travels thus far had not been pleasant, but had been smooth thus far. Lady Joanna continuously peered out of the carriage windows while holding or playing with young Tyler. She took the time to point out landmarks and landscapes to him as they passed. The Reach and their rotting crops to the south, and the ever-drying riverlands to the north. Lady Joanna then heard Osman, the commander of her garrison, shout commands to her guard, not shortly after the carriage grinded to a halt. Without fanfare, Osman hoisted himself into the carriage. He open-handed slapped the wall of the carriage behind the driver. Without words. The four-horse lead jerked their ride along the western road. Osman then twisted himself to face her as he guided his sheathed blade around the mounted furniture before he took a seat.
G'day, milady. We may have a small problem, eh?
Tell me, Lord Osman, what is it that could make us worry way out here in the middle of nowhere?
Lady Joanna asked bluntly. Osman drew a deep breath to reply, just as the carriage wheels skipped over a tree root that temporarily removed him from his seat.
One of our scouts who rides out at a perimeter never reported back in. Likely he fell from his bloody horse. But our replacement scout never found the horse, or a body eye.
Lady Joanna digested this, but her concern was in their travel plans.
How does this affect our travels moving forward?
She asked impatiently, and Osman's stiff upper lip conveyed disagreement before he ever spoke.
Yeah, nah. You're missing the point, milady. I assume we are being followed. Lannister banners are enough to discourage common thieves, but acute action suggests something more egregious, maybe personal. Is there anyone with a personal grudge who could travel freely through the Riverlands?
Osman asked directly as Joanna finally realized what this could mean.
Yes, Lord Tully could have a quarrel with me.
She admitted directly, and Osman scoffed in frustration.
The Lord of the goddamn Riverlands takes issue with you, and your father neglected to mention this to the captain of his daughter's bloody guard. What kind of shit detail is he running?
Osman demanded, but likely didn't expect an answer from the young lady.
Let's assume our missing rider is because we are being followed by those loyal to House Tully. How do we then proceed?
Lady Joanna asked directly, and Osman pulled slightly on his long dark beard as he thought on his next words.
Tonight, under the cover of darkness, I will smuggle you out of the caravan, along with your brother. We will camp in the lowlands on the north side of the road. Our uninvited guests will be eyeing us from the highlands to the south. Please be aware, milady, this could mean the slaughter of your father's men, but it could spare Lannister blood if you agree, eh?
Osman suggested, but Lady Joanna assumed he would not take her concerns into consideration. Joanna looked over to young Tyler as he stared down at one of the many books he would constantly reread during their travels.
What of my handmaidens?
Lady Joanna asked, and Osman was quick to respond.
Yeah, nah. If we mean to draw out our stalkers, better to bait the hook eye. Please forgive the expression. Your life may be at stake, milady.
Osman finished as Joanna thought deeply upon it. What would Lady Sansa do if in this position these men were pledged to House Lannister? Is it inconsiderate to expect them to fulfill their vows, even unknowingly? Lady Joanna heard of many times Lord Tyrion was forced to make decisions that were threat of life related. She never assumed she would be forced into the same decisions so soon.
We will do as you suggest, Lord Osman.
Lady Joanna decided as Tyler smiled. She assumed he liked the idea of sleeping under the stars, rather than inside this stuffy room for another night.
After dark, before we start a campfire, cover yourself while carrying Tyler. Make no conversation with anyone. I'll lead you to safety where I can keep watch throughout the bloody night.
Osman finished as he slapped the bulkhead again, bringing the carriage to a halt. He exited briskly and provided no other clarification to Lady Joanna for the remainder of the evening. She searched through her belongings and finally located a long black cloak at the bottom of her trunk. The carriage finally came to a halt as Osmond ordered the men to make camp for the night. The sun was setting below the horizon when Joanna explained what was happening to Tyler. He couldn't contain his excitement at the thought of a battle happening tonight. Lady Joanna could feel his little heart thumping away as he pressed his chest to hers. The long cloak was spacious enough to engulf both the young Lannisters as darkness was finally upon them. Wolves to the south, all men to arms, the sentry shouted. Joanna peeked out the window facing north. No guards remained, and this was their chance to escape unseen. Joanna folded her arms under Tyler's bottom as she ran flat-footed away from the carriage. She breathed heavily as she made her way down the embankment that supported the western road. She splashed ankle-deep in water. She spun, trying to find Osmond, but she was only surrounded by trees and brush. She was starting to panic. If the wolves were not a diversion, she was now alone, unarmed, and in the presence of a predator. Fog poured from her mouth as her panicked breath attempted to keep young Tyler calm. Joanna leaned against a tree, debating her predicament as a hand over her mouth shushed her as she panicked.
Shh, pipe down, Yaminga. Shut your fucking trap.
Osmond demanded as the lady attempted to calm herself.
There is a set of pelts for you two to cove up in and spend the night. If anything should happen to me or the rest of your father's men, follow the path here down to the stream. 2 horses are tied to a downed tree blocking the stream.
Osmond finished, though Joanna could barely make him out in the darkness. He was covered in mud and thick brush. She could only see the whites of his eyes as he spoke. Joanna was soaked from the knees down, but she used the dry part of her long hooded cloak to dry herself as Tyler crawled under the pelts that would be their bed for the night. Lady Joanna could barely see Osmond stand watch as he blended into the brush. They had a proper view of the caravan once they started a small fire to ready their rations. Still, with the added light, Joanna could only make out the occasional sights Osmond would show. The removal of his bow from his back and the glare of an arrowhead trained upon the camp. Here they would wait for the Tullys to make an attempt on the caravan. The cool night's breeze brushed across Joanna's face as she struggled to keep watch alongside Osmond. Tyler had long since fell asleep under the pelts with his sister. Joanna's breath fogged from under the warmth of the pelts. Just an hour or so from daybreak, Joanna woke to Osmond's movements.
Stay down, keep that bloody cub quiet, aye.
Osmond whispered as Joanna slightly shifted her weight. The full moon provided just enough light for Osmond to spot his targets as the campfire near the carriage burned low. Joanna first counted 4, then nearly 24 men emerged. Still, the Lannister guardsmen failed to raise an alarm. One after another, the Tullys slashed the throats of sleeping Lannister guardsmen. Any Tully who wandered off by himself instantly met the pointy end of Osmond's iron-born longbow. Osmond laid low, only emerging to take a shot from the brush. Every time a Tully man observed a body impaled from an arrow, he quickly met the same fate. Nearly a dozen men fell to Osmond's iron-born bow. Joanna felt torn as her father's men were slaughtered in their sleep. She wanted to scream aloud to warn them, men whose oaths were to protect her, and she was failing in showing them the same devotion. Constantly, Osmond's arrows peppered the onslaught in complete silence. Still, Lady Joanna was torn. A slim shadow appeared in front of the carriage, and Joanna felt her heart stop. She flipped the pelts over to find Tyler missing from her charge. Young Tyler had woke and scurried down to the carriage, unbeknownst to the young lady charged with his protection. Joanna wanted to scream as a Tully soldier appeared on the opposite side of the carriage. He had not yet seen the blonde-haired child attempting to enter the carriage. Joanna whispered once, again louder than before, thus warning Osmond of the wayward youth about to meet his demise. Still, no arrow flew towards Tyler's direction. Joanna leapt from her cove and sprinted across the road. After a few tense seconds, she scooped up young Tyler and rolled themselves under the carriage. She covered Tyler's mouth to ensure his silence. She controlled her breathing, attempting to stay silent. But she was aware of the noise she had made, the bloody gurgling of soldiers slain in their sleep still ringing in her ears. The ominous sound of footsteps echoing her own approached the carriage as she held her panicked breath. The footsteps approached and bent down to confront them. Joanna felt pride surge through her as the thought of her own demise would be in defense of her brother. How she hoped Lady Sansa would be prideful of her final act. An acute groan and scream occurred as a blade pierced through the chest of the Tully soldier who approached the carriage.
Oi, get to the horses! Move your damn asses!
Osmond screamed, but in a whisper. Joanna rolled again, holding Tyler's mouth so tight she worried if he could breathe. Again, she splashed through the muck of the riverlands to the stream Osmond spoke of. After a lengthy run, Joanna found the horses tied to the downed tree and set Tyler atop the shorter of the two horses. She took one final look over her shoulder as she mounted the horse behind young Tyler. The reins were free, and she set her horse into a fierce gallop. After a few moments of riding, she paused to check her backside. Another set of hooves closed her position. Joanna was not aware of whether they were friend or foe. She took the conservative position and continued to take flight. The hooves closed her position as Tyler was now screaming for his mother. Joanna refused to disappoint the Lady Sansa. She heard steel being unsheathed as she ducked low to avoid the blade. She felt the brief kiss of the blade as a lock of her blonde hair tumbled into the night. She drew a deep breath as she knew the second attempt was more likely to make its mark. The horse behind her whelped as a bold collision took a pair of steeds to the ground. Joanna galloped to a safe distance, observing Osmond take the older Tully soldier to the ground. The two traded blows of their longswords. Once locked, Osmond took the Tully soldier to the ground. A blood-curdling scream filled Joanna's ears as the men wrestled in the mud. Joanna drew deep breaths as the pair of men now ceased their movements. Her stern stare turned to relief as Osmond righted himself as he recovered his breath. Lady Joanna cried in relief as the Ironborn emerged from the pile of bodies and blood. His breath fogged around his head as he sighed in relief.
Yeah, now, how is the little lord?
Lord Osmond demanded in his exhaustion.
He's upset, but he's fine.
Lady Joanna explained to Osmond's relief.
Little shit almost got us both killed. He's as much trouble as his father.
Osmond laughed at his own joke as he spun his view to try and locate his horse. His own steed never righted itself as Osmond slashed a blade to put the poor animal out of its misery. The Tully steed was still capable of travel as Osmond transferred his saddlebags to the new horse.
Yeah, nah, we won't be returning to the bloody caravan. We need to move now. We're still a fortnight away from Casterly Rock, aye.
Lady Joanna quickly realized the second half of their travels would not be nearly as comfortable as the first half. Her father's guard were killed alongside numerous Tully soldiers. Joanna now regretted her provocation of Lord Brynden. She never assumed the slight would mean her death. Lady Joanna rode stone-faced as she replayed their conversation in the throne room. Lord Tyrion would be furious, and Lady Sansa would man the executioner's block herself. The Riverlands were known for their bloodshed, but Joanna was prepared to unleash her grandfather Tywin's fury onto the lands he had once decimated. Joanna thought to herself as the pair of horses hurried on a path now slightly parallel to the western road. Lord Tyrion sat in front of an open window enjoying the midday breeze. The heat in the city had finally broke, and Lord Tyrion made a point to enjoy it. He returned from his numerous morning meetings to a pile of scrolls from all corners of the Seven Kingdoms. Rarely would good news travel by Raven, and today would be no exception. Lady Arya had reportedly safely arrived in White Harbor, to no one's surprise. What was surprising is that she arrived at her destination before her daughter had reached Storm's End. Lord Tyrion assumed the princess's arrival notification was buried somewhere on his desk. This assumption fell to the floor once he received a message directly from Storm's End itself. Apparently, the princess was nearly a week overdue. Fishermen had reported a major storm developed by the gods themselves was churning outside Shipbreaker Bay. This alarmed Tyrion greatly as he sprang to his feet just as his door opened without request. Grand Maester Wolkan, noticeably alarmed, was drenched in sweat and huffing a great deal. Lord Tyrion assumed his message was dire. He had never seen this level of panic from the old Maester.
Lady Yara demands your presence at the Mudgate, my lord. She implores you to hurry. She claims the city is at risk.
Lord Tyrion's mouth was agape as Yara was not as superstitious as your typical Ironborn. Giant krakens and such, swallowing Storm's End. Or perhaps defeating Aegon the Conqueror, Tyrion thought to himself. Wolkan hurried Tyrion through the door to a fleet of gold cloaks and the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, Sir Jericho Motley. Lord Tyrion hurried down the Tower of the Hand. Once they reached the main corridor, Tyrion bellowed at Sir Jericho.
Over the drawbridge or into the dungeons?
Lord Tyrion asked, and Sir Jericho shouted orders to the gold cloaks.
The drawbridge, my lord. The City Watch has been fully mobilized on short notice. They are attempting to clear the streets.
Sir Jericho responded shortly, and Tyrion continued peppering him with questions.
The king is being moved. He was holding an audience with Lord Glover, an emissary sent from the north. They are being moved to the Holdfast.
Glover. You say Glover. I swear I've heard that name recently.
Lord Tyrion wondered aloud as their boots clambered on the drawbridge over the Red Keep's dry moat. Despite the cool break in the weather, Lord Tyrion sweat profusely as they scurried down the long staircases leading to the beach. Lady Yara was standing alone on the beach, draped in black and facing the mouth of Blackwater Bay. Lord Tyrion approached her, but he noticed one abundant abnormality. The sea was missing. It sounded odd to Tyrion to even think of something so absurd, but his eyes were not deceiving him. Yara stood where the surf would normally greet the beach, but the water was hundreds of yards withdrawn from where they stood. Lord Tyrion slowly approached the Iron Islander, who looked to be in as much awe as he was. All manner of marine life were exposed. Sharks and schools of fish flopped about the beach, searching for the sea. Lord Tyrion's eyes strained, trying to make sight of the waterline. He realized what was obstructing his view. Multiple shipwrecks were exposed and now scattered the horizon. Lord Tyrion realized these were the remnants of Stannis Baratheon's fleet sent to the bottom of the Blackwater by Tyrion himself. Lady Yara then finally spoke, which jarred Lord Tyrion back from the Battle of the Blackwater.
The sea is retreating.
This is not a common occurrence in the Crown Lands.
Lady Yara calmly beckoned, and Lord Tyrion wasn't sure if she had collected enough dramatic poise before continuing.
Perhaps during a quake, a rogue wave could sink entire fleets and swallow shores whole. This is commonplace only in the Stormlands.
Lady Yara continued, still her gaze fixated on the retreating shoreline.
A storm, sent by the gods themselves. The storm surge will return, with winds strong enough to uproot trees and decimate castles. The storm could last for days. The surge, perhaps even longer.
Lady Yara finished, still mesmerized by the abnormal horizon.
Why did you call me here? What would you recommend?
You needed to see with your own eyes. The wrath the sea is capable of.
Lady Yara finished, and Lord Tyrion began to grow impatient.
What level of damage can we expect?
Damage? Please, Lord Tyrion. Please try to understand my warning. The capital, this city is about to drown. Ring the damn bells, raise the gates. But it's likely 1 million will soon meet your stranger.
Lady Yara replied as she turned her back to the sea that was surely coming after her.
Run, hide in the towers, but even that may not save you. This just may be the end of King's Landing, my lord hand.
Lady Yara ominously warned as Tyrion turned and hurried up the beach.
Run!
Lady Yara pleaded desperately enough to send a chill down Tyrion's spine as they hurried back to the Red Keep.
Sir Jericho, raise all the gates. Leave them unmanned if you have to. Evacuate Flea Bottom to Rhaenys' Hill, and the Street of Steel to Visenya's Hill, and immediately sound the bells. Send multiple men using different paths.
Lord Tyrion ordered, and Sir Jericho then acknowledged.
My lord, what of the Rivers Row and the Hook? They are the lowest points of the city.
Send your bravest men then, men without children. It may be too late to save those closest to the Blackwater.
Lord Tyrion lamenting having to sacrifice anyone. But time would not allow even bravery to save the common folk from the gods' wrath. After a sweaty sprint up the twisted staircases at the base of the Red Keep, Sir Jericho then asked the most difficult question.
What of the Red Keep's guard and the rest of the City Watch?
Lord Tyrion thought on it for a moment. It was a difficult decision, but one that had to be made.
They will remain inside the castle. The protection of the king is paramount. If the waves drown the city, order will need to be maintained after. We will need them post-disaster.
Lord Tyrion finished. He could tell by Sir Jericho's body language that he did not agree. Tyrion did not judge him. The moral questions were easy to ask when you were not the man forced to make the decisions. Sir Jericho was an intelligent man. Lord Tyrion knew he was weighing those same moral arguments. Tyrion reached the Tower of the Hand, and Lady Sansa rose to greet him upon his entry. He simply charged at her and raised his hands above his own head. He took her face into his hands. Many years of marriage communicated to Sansa to lower herself so they could meet eyes. Tyrion kissed her passionately. He was not sure if this would communicate confidence or apprehension. When Tyrion opened his eyes, he saw her own were full of concern.
Where is the king? What is happening?
Lady Sansa demanded. Lord Tyrion simply offered her his hand, and he led her to the balcony high above the rest of King's Landing. Lady Sansa gasped as she saw the sky, dark, swirling, and full of colors Tyrion had never seen before. She gasped in either awe of its beauty or in horror of its possible destruction. She picked up the front of her dress with both hands and ran gracefully to the opposite end of the tower. Lord Tyrion met her there a moment later as the city bells began to ring. The common folk scurried amongst the hills of Visenya and Rhaenys. The City Watch and their steeds hurried crowds through the streets. Tyrion half expected Sansa to get emotional, but he only saw determination in her eyes.
The king is being moved to the Holdfast. This is the highest place in the Red Keep.
Fortunate for us, but not for the rest of the city.
Lady Sansa replied, likely grateful their children were far from King's Landing on the Western Road. Tyrion held her hand and pointed to the shoreline as they reached the Blackwater side of the tower. The storm now blacked out the sun as darkness fell upon the city itself. Lord Tyrion watched the receding shoreline intently, and finally, the wave appeared. Lord Tyrion could not believe his eyes. The rogue wave was hundreds of feet high and was still yet to crest. The bells continued to ring as the sea prepared its assault on the capital. The common folk scurried about the hills like ants on their mounds. Lightning danced across the sky and struck the sea. Beautiful, but terrifying nonetheless.
I'd see this every fortnight had I married into the Stormlands.
Lady Sansa gestured through her nervousness.
We're safe here, dear wife.
Still here. Even here you lie, and I've never loved you more, husband.
Claimed Lady Sansa as she kissed him again. The deafening crash of the rogue wave forced Tyrion's eyes open and directed them back towards the shoreline. The wave was split by Aegon's Hill, and the wave rushed into the city and shook the hill violently enough to make Tyrion uneasy on his feet. The city walls did little to deter the sea, and the wave crested and crashed over them as if they were no longer there. Tyrion patiently waited as the tower leaned, or at least felt as if it was leaning. No part of River Row or the Hook were visible as they were swallowed by the rising of the Blackwater. The sea wrapped around Visenya's Hill and continued until water rushed through the gates of the gods. That was it, Tyrion thought. The city. The entire city washed away, nay, any part of the capital spared. The wind now howled and directed the hand's attention skyward. The bells ceased ringing, and only then Tyrion could finally hear the wails of the city and the moans and creaks of the Red Keep. The sound of falling rock and rush of earth was indicative of a mudslide just under the rookery. It was a medium-sized tower on the Blackwater side of the keep. Lord Tyrion watched in horror as the rookery tower collapsed and was claimed by the mighty Blackwater. Now the rain aided the wind in filling Lord Tyrion's ears. Still, Lady Sansa said no words as their own tower swayed. Just the tips of the trees remained visible above the waterline in the Godswood. It was difficult to determine which way the water was now flowing. He wasn't sure if the worst was now, or perhaps yet to come. The easiest way to decide was to locate debris, and, unfortunately, dead floating bodies as well, for which there were many.
White Sword Tower.
Lady Sansa exclaimed calmly as it fell with a mighty crash. The Blackwater had just claimed another for its own. Lord Tyrion kept a close eye on the base of the tower. The horizontal rain stung his skin as the wind propelled them like a constant volley of arrows from a frustrated battle commander. The creaks and moans of the tower continued, and the sky was now black on all sides of the castle. Lightning still crashed constantly, briefly illuminating the once mighty capital of Westeros. Lord Tyrion held his wife close as the sound of rushing earth from beneath their feet were heard clearly despite the screaming of the storm. Perhaps the storm gods themselves, Lord Tyrion thought. The floor felt crooked as the furniture slid and then crashed into the walls. Tyrion and Sansa slipped down the newly declining floors. Their tower was falling, the last tower on the side of the sea. The couple held each other close, though this impact in the shallow water of the Godswood separated the couple from each other, leaving Tyrion alone, deaf from the wind, wet, and covered in darkness.